Once upon a time, there lived an unhappy young girl named Cinderella. Her mother had died, and her father married a woman with 2 daughters. Cinderella's stepmother didn't like Cinderella one bit, and only gave nice things, kind thoughts, and loving touches to her own girls. Soon after the wedding, Cinderella's father died, and the stepmother forced Cinderella to work as a maid in her own house, scrubbing the floors and doing the laundry. Cinderella was a very beautiful girl, and looked lovelier in her rags than her lumpy-dumpy stepsisters ever would in their finery. This made the stepmother hate her even more. One morning, an invitation arrived at Cinderella's house. It was from the royal palace. The king's only son, a handsome prince, was having a grand ball, and every eligible young lady in the land was invited. The stepmother and her daughters were very excited. Cinderella hesitantly asked if she could also attend the ball. "You're staying at home to turn down the beds for your stepsisters," the stepmother replied sternly. "They will be very tired when they come back." Tears rolled down Cinderella's cheeks. The night of the ball arrived, and the stepmother and sisters left for the palace. Cinderella went to the kitchen and sat down by the fire to eat her supper. "Oh, I do wish I could have gone to the ball too," she sighed. Suddenly, there was a burst of light, and a fairy appeared in front of her. "You want to go to the ball, Cinderella?" the fairy said. "And so you shall." The fairy said her magic words, "Presto changeo," and with a flick of her magic wand, Cinderella was wearing the most beautiful dress she had ever seen. On her feet, she found the most delicate glass slippers. Cinderella couldn't believe her eyes. The fairy smiled and said, "Now that you are dressed, you're going to need a coach. A lovely lady like you would never go to a ball on foot." She told Cinderella to go to the garden and bring her a golden pumpkin and 7 little mice. Cinderella quickly returned with what she needed. The fairy flicked her wand, and the pumpkin turned into a golden coach. She flicked her wand again, and the mice transformed into 6 horses and 1 smartly dressed coachman. Cinderella was ready to go to the ball, but the fairy left her with a warning. "You must leave the palace at midnight, for that is when my spell ends. Your coach will turn back into a pumpkin, the horses and the coachman will become mice once more, and you will be dressed in rags again." Cinderella promised to be back by midnight. From the moment Cinderella entered the palace ballroom, all eyes were on her. People stopped mid-sentence to admire her elegance, beauty, and grace. The stepsisters were very jealous of the mysterious newcomer. They did not know that it was Cinderella. The trumpets blared, and the royal family entered the hall. All of the unmarried ladies wanted to meet the prince, but the prince only had eyes for Cinderella. He walked over to her, bowed deeply, and asked her for a dance. Cinderella accepted, and the music began. They danced the evening through, and soon the prince was in love with Cinderella. He asked her what her name was, but Cinderella just smiled and said, "It doesn't matter who I am. Let's just enjoy ourselves." Cinderella was gazing into the prince's eyes when she heard the first stroke of the clock. It was midnight. She remembered the fairy's warning, and without even a goodbye, she turned and ran. She was in such a hurry that she didn't even stop to pick up the glass slipper that fell off her foot on the grand staircase. The prince found the glass slipper on the stairs. He picked it up and announced to his ministers that he would marry the girl who fit it. All through the night and into the next day, the ministers went from house to house with the glass slipper. Dozens of ladies tried to squeeze their foot into the delicate shoe, but it didn't fit any of them. At last the ministers came to Cinderella's house. The first stepsister tried to squash her foot into the slipper, but her foot was too wide. The second stepsister tried to put her foot in, but it was too long. Then the minister saw Cinderella scrubbing the floor in the corner. He asked her to try on the shoe. The stepmother intervened. "That dirty wretch was not at the ball. She's too filthy. She's just the maid." However, the minister insisted that Cinderella get her chance. Cinderella put her foot into the glass slipper. It fit perfectly. Suddenly, the fairy appeared and waved her magic wand. Cinderella transformed into the fine lady she had been the night before. Her stepmother and stepsisters shrieked in horror and amazement. The prince was overjoyed to be reunited with his love. They were soon married, and Cinderella felt great joy for the rest of her days as they lived happily ever after.